Re-0, Volume 5, Chapter 4, Part 1, On the Periphery of Madness. When the darkness split apart and he awoke, it began with the pain of sunlight burning his eyes. Warm blood flowed through his limbs. His shattered lower body was firmly standing upon the ground. Right after the first blink, all his lost mental functions seemed to return at once. His brain instantly restarted and then short-circuited from information overload, making his eyes literally spin. Where the ringing in his ears dominated his world, the sounds of thronging humans going about their lives came rushing in. Various people mingled along the dusty road, bearing his field of vision and the living souls he had so craved. Subaru stood rooted in place as the human wave parted around him. The beating of his cracked heart grew fiercer. Hey there! You listening? Along with the click of the tongue, the rough voice reached him from right beside him. Subaru slowly shifted his gaze toward it and saw a stern, scowling face with a vertical scar on it. The man rubbed the white streak with a finger. Give me a break, kid. Don't just stare into space like that. The very faint reply drew a sigh out of the man. What's with that weak reply? Well, whatever. More importantly, something happened to you? The speaker held out his hand with a nice, shiny red fruit sitting on top of it. Subaru came to the conclusion that the man's appearance was a truly terrible match for the person inside. It seemed surreal. Subaru remained silent as he gazed absent-mindedly at the fruit. His situational awareness was badly lacking. However, the man didn't suspect that something was wrong with Subaru, instead leaning forward as he said, Hey, enough fooling around here. I asked how many apples. Don't make me say it over and over. The man reached over the counter and grabbed hold of Subaru's shoulder. He roughly pulled him closer, and Subaru's defenseless body pitched forward and crashed against the shelf. The man let go with a surprised look on his face. What are you doing? Stand up properly. Your legs are all wobbly, damn it. Legs? The man pointed to Subaru's lower body with an exasperated look on his face. You've got two good ones attached to your hips. What, daydreamed you'd lost them or something? When Subaru looked down, he did have legs, trembling and shaking though they were. Since they were unreliable and unable to support his body, he was leaning on the shelves at the moment. With an annoyed voice, the man said, I'm begging you, quit the bad jokes. This ain't normal conversation, and it's messing with me. But Subaru's body didn't respond. Reality didn't register as real. He felt detached somehow, like some sort of discord had developed in the connection between his body and his soul. What was he doing there? What had happened to him? He felt like something had happened to him, but what? What am I doing here? What? Suddenly, a girl's voice sounded in his ears. Subaru? Unable to speak a word, Subaru felt his eyes go wide as he lifted up his face. Behind the counter, there was a tiny silhouette standing near the stern, tall man, cleaning things up. She wore an apron dress that was mostly black, with a white apron and a white headdress. She stood straight with a small stature and an elegant body. At the counter between them, she turned her lovely face towards Subaru. Her shoulder-length blue hair fluttered in the wind, drawing attention to a refreshing, gentle image. Tears formed in his eyes. Subaru? Sobs poured out of him as his field of vision blurred. He earnestly rubbed both eyes, fearful that the clear, distinct image of the girl would fade. And yet she grew more and more distant as the murmurs loudened. Before he realized it, he'd lost the support of the coucher and fallen onto the street. Unable to send strength and will to his feet, he lay there amid the pedestrians coming and going, tears flowing as he gasped with disjointed breaths. No, it was not breathing. I... It was laughter. The murmurs broadened. He could tell that more and more people were shifting their gazes to him. Someone was watching him. Someone saw him. He wasn't by himself. He wasn't isolated. From this alone, he knew he was accepted, even lying there in the street like a marionette with the cut strings. Rather than run around the counter, the girl leaped right over it to move to his side. "Subaru, what's wrong? Are you all right? Get a grip on." The girl wrapped her arms around the fallen Subaru to sit him up, and she did. She felt so defenseless, and he hugged her back with all his strength. The girl accepted the embrace with astonishment. Her breath was so close, and her warmth was so comforting as he buried his nose into her shoulder and hugged her tight. Perplexed, she tried to say something. Subaru? Each word, each syllable, each character, each breath was a hymn to Subaru. He embraced her firmly, his arms refusing to let go. Nor did the girl stir even an inch, quietly accepting the embrace, making no move to brush him off. The warmth of her body, the heartbeats of life, made him feel that others were alive like nothing else could. The madman named Subernatsky continued to simply laugh. Ferris, sitting in a leather-covered chair, put a finger to his cheek and solemnly declared, "To be frank, Barry can only say that it is all over. Meow." His ears twitched, and he swept back his flaxen hair as he shifted his gaze away from Subaru, sleeping in a feminine-looking bed. He looked instead to Rem with a pitying look in his eyes. He continued, "Barry can only do something about physical wounds, you see. Issues with the body are workable, whether within or without. But there is nothing Barry can do for the mind. Meow." After Ferris's apology for his powerlessness, Rem bowed in a show of respect. "No, thank you very much for exhausting all your efforts." But somehow, her flat voice sounded devoid of emotion. This was not like her normal suppression of her opinions. Rem's inner turmoil was simply too great, and it turned into profound sadness. Ferris closed one eye in a pained look. Rem did not notice his reaction and gently leaned her head forward, shifting her attention to Subaru where he lay on the bed. They had Subaru in bed to tend to him, but that didn't mean he was asleep. Both his eyes were wide open as he stared straight at the ceiling. From time to time, he'd make a fragmented laugh like he'd just remembered something, and when that passed, he would suddenly break into tears. In this unstable state, Subaru's torment continued apace. Truly, the change in the boy had been a sudden one. Until that morning, no, the entire time he'd been walking with Rem through the rural capital that morning, he'd been his normal self. Certainly the incident the day before weighed on him, and his behavior showed some signs that he was stressed, but Subaru was striving as he normally did. Rem deeply respected his wishes and sought to be close to him without changing his behavior. She didn't think anything had happened that could trigger this. Rem painfully regretted that the instant Subaru had abruptly changed was when she'd taken her eyes off him. Even so, she was right there at the shop, listening to the shopkeeper converse with him. Thanks to Rem's tireless efforts, the store had sold its merchandise nicely, and the shopkeeper, in quite high spirits, seemed inclined to give them a souvenir. He was asking how many apples Subaru wanted to take with them, and she remembered him answering, "How about all of them?" The very next moment, his demeanor abruptly changed. He fell limply onto the street. When Rem sat up, he seemed so overcome by sadness and tears of joy that he kept laughing. Deeming he wasn't well, Rem carried Subaru back to the Krush villa, accepting all the trouble it might cause. Suspecting it was some kind of magical interference, she politely insisted that Ferris examine Subaru. However, it had all come to naught. Even Ferris, the most accomplished healer in all the royal capital, could not identify the cause of his sudden change. If Ferris could do nothing, it might well mean that gathering all the great magic users in the entire royal capital would still not be enough to heal him. Subaru's present condition was unrelated to magic. His mind had suddenly become unbalanced. Ferris asked, "Fairy doesn't really want to ask, meow, but what will you do?" "Without understanding the cause, dealing with it is difficult. I am sorry to have troubled you, Master Felix." Don't worry, meowed it. As a matter of fact, it's better for Fairy's treatment now that he's not making a weird fuss, in a manner of speaking. Subaru hated Ferris's treatment and often voiced his complaints. On that level, Rem could understand how he was easier to deal with lying down and listless. The words were still highly insensitive. Ferris continued, But is it really good to continue treatment, meow?" Rem, who was watching Subaru, lifted her head and shifted her gaze toward Ferris. "What do you mean?" "Don't be upset by my asking, meow, but the treatment for Subaru's gait is to make life easier for him, yes?" "Yes." "If he can no longer live a normal life, treating him is meaningless, isn't it?" "Subaru is..." The even more insensitive remark drove Rem to forget Ferris's status as she yelled. But even faced with the maid's emotions, Ferris's look of doubt did not falter. "Are you saying don't stop now, meow? Sing him like this? Are you serious? It's true some things have happened to him, but if that's enough to break him, he's not likely to ever recover." Ferris looked down at Subaru with undiluted scorn. To Rem, who knew that this was the man to whom Lagunica had granted the title of Blue, the archetype for all water magic users, his behavior was all too callous. If someone couldn't be treated, throw the person away. That was the judgment of the kingdom's foremost healer. What did he understand about the individual named Subaru to judge that he had no prospects for healing? "Oh my, what a stare you have. Subaru's a lucky man. Not that he ever realized it." "Subaru's current situation is unrelated to the royal selection. He is not a person who would lose his mind over minor failures." "Believe that all you want. As far as Fairy's concerned, keeping his sanity after everything that's happened presents problems of its own, meow. And besides..." Ferris set aside his flippant tone as he looked frostily at Rem. "Don't misunderstand. Fairy doesn't hate Subaru, so this isn't out of some kind of special grudge against him. This isn't particular to Subaru as a person. Fairy just hates people who lose their will to live. Pure and simple." Ferris pointed at Subaru, and then he touched his finger to his own chin. "Even for someone with my meowgic specialty, there's no way to use that power besides healing. Fairy helps all kinds of people day after day to be of service to Lady Krush. Meow. Everyone struggles hard to live, so thanks doesn't matter, but Fairy hates wasting this power on anyone." "I think that is admirable." "Thank you, but it's not right to save people who don't want to live. Even if you heal the body, isn't it just saving an unused life? If that's the case, end it before it causes other people trouble. Well, in this case, it already has. Meow. Harris declared his blunt assessment with a stern face. Behind that hard demeanor, Rem keenly felt Ferris's sincerity concerning the many lives he had no doubt saved. His way of saying it was dismissive, but it was what Ferris had learned from watching life and death in all that time. That had informed his views on life itself. Even so, Subaru is... Rem, battered by Ferris's words, looked at the boy with pure regret. Subaru was unaware that he was the subject of the conversation as he made faint, intermittent giggles, as if hearing these things had stirred the wounds remaining in his mind. Deep inside, Rem wanted nothing more than to lose her grip on herself, cling to Subaru, and cry aloud, but that would bring dishonor to him and tarnish the good name of Roswell, her benefactor. More than anything else, it would be a betrayal of the feelings she herself had carried while watching over him all this time. A clear voice flowed into the room, abruptly breaking the awkward silence within. Ferris, I believe your view is just a little too strict. Rem reflexively raised her head at the voice. When Ferris noticed the visitor, his expression brightened. After all, his eyes were always full of zealous devotion when they gazed upon her. Lady Cruche, said Rem, I do not go as far as to say weakness is a crime. I do believe, however, that condoning that weakness and wallowing in it while leaving the situation uncorrected is very much a vice. When Rem hastily lowered her head at Cruche's arrival, the Duchess checked her with a hand. With a shake of her long green hair, she moved to the edge of the bed. Her eyes narrowed as she looked down at Subaru, who had a wicked smile on his face even then. I see. This is certainly an alarming state. Do you know the cause? Hearing Cruche's question, Ferris raised both hands up as he replied. No. According to Rem, he suddenly fell over, so Ferry examined him from head to toe. But there's no sign of any interference with his mana. Meow. Is it possible this is some kind of curse? It is difficult to imagine, but I can think of someone taking measures against those with knowledge of the royal candidates. One could suspect that this is a show of force by another camp. However... Neither is very likely, is it? Meow. There's not much time to set something up, and who'd go after Subaru in the first place? Anyone involved would know he's powerless, and there is no magical interference anyways, curses included. Harry's positive, and besides... As Ferris's words trailed off, he tilted his head and gently leaned into Cruche, who stood there with her arms folded. Lady Cruche, do you doubt Fairy's abilities? Of course not. I could never question your ability, personality, or loyalty. Even if you were to hold a dagger in front of me, ready to run me through, that thought is set in stone. Oh my, Lady Cruche, what a magnificent line. Ah, Fairy's falling to pieces. Cruche left Ferris to squirm and wallow as she shifted her penetrating gaze toward Rem. Ferris has spoken, and if Ferris's power will not suffice, none in my house is capable of treating Subrunatsky. I'm sorry we can be of no assistance. Cruche's apology, despite doing nothing wrong herself, sent Rem into another low bow. Not at all. Your deep consideration leaves me speechless. In truth, beyond the reach of words and pleasantries, Cruche had conveyed a warmth to her that she could never return. The finest healer in all the kingdom had rendered his diagnosis, and the head of a rival political camp had conveyed sympathy nonetheless. What more could Rem hope for from them? Cruche and Ferris had done nothing wrong. Rem knew that. After all, she had her own suspicion about how Subaru had ended up in that state. The witch. The presence of the miasma of the witch enveloping Subaru's entire body had become denser still. What linked that miasma to Subaru's abnormal state was unclear, but it was a fact she'd sensed an outpouring of it just before he had collapsed. If the cause was the witch's poison, she could not criticize Ferris's judgment that there was nothing he could do. Very few beings were able to sense the presence of that substance in the first place. Not even Ram could catch the scent the way Rem could. Nothing good came with such pall. Those who planned wicked things were rich with it. Her physiological distaste for it and the hateful memories that accompanied it made her deeply prejudiced against those who bore it. Although the actions of the boy with the strongest witch smell she'd ever met had melted her hard heart and swept those prejudices aside. Even so, yes, even so, Rem knew that nothing good came from that miasma. The demon in her knew this. Back so soon, you might wonder. Well, perhaps I have my own time set up now. I don't know how breaks will go. I might just take them at my leisure instead of set. I'll see. But I do, looking at like I did in the end of the last chapter, seeing how much I have to do, I kind of want to do it faster. Because I already looked at the books, saw how fast they're coming out, and at the rate I'm going, I might just be keeping up with how fast they're coming out and not getting ahead. But we'll see about that. This might not come up when I think it will. However, like I said, I'm going to take breaks as I need to now, so I'll see about that. Anyways, that little bit aside, thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and I suppose I'll see you guys next time.